Hey everybody, this is Wes. Welcome back to the show. I'm watching back the video of my little painting here. It's of, somebody doing a flip, some kind of acrobatics. I think I called the painting Acrobat. And it's just a small, 11 by 11 inch canvas. And I'm starting in just with I've got my large brush and I'm just using it kind of like a pencil just to draw the thing. Of course, with paint, it's more like you're drawing shapes rather than lines. Although you can still get lines, it's just that the lines have width. It's a constant kind of push and pull between the line and the shape there. So I'm as I'm looking over to my left at my reference photo, which is on a monitor, a computer, I'm referencing the angles of the lines and shapes and the relative position to other points, like the outstretched arm on the top right. How far is it from the leg in comparison to the other leg, and figuring all those relationships out as you go. That's a big part of drawing, and of course, in an extension way, kind of part of painting as well. Going through just filling the canvas with paint, so I'm getting in some background, just sky color, basic sky. The image was a YouTube video that I just paused. Somebody was doing some kind of a trick, and I might include it here just to show you what it looks like, but it's not going to look pretty because it's very rough. I'm not going for detail with this painting, which is why it didn't matter that it's a very fuzzy, poor reference photo. I think I actually just took a photo of the computer monitor where it was paused, so there's multiple levels of low resolution going on. But all I needed was the shape, the form. Using the background colors, I'm cutting into the foreground paint to correct the angles and the widths of the shapes and these sorts of things as I go. If I had a little more patience, I would have let this dry first, because it just adds some of that purplish, reddish purple color to the background, but even that doesn't really matter. I'm going to be going back over the background once more at least. But if I let it dry, then I don't have to worry about clearing the excess red from my brush when I go back into the background. Kind of taking the opportunity to lighten up these little shapes as I go too. Then I've reached the point where it was time to let it dry, and I'm coming back on the freshly dried canvas with a China marker that I often use as a pencil. Kind of redrawing, because I noticed the head was a little not aligned the way it was in the photo, and the arm might have had a slight angle to it that I didn't show. So I'm kind of, just kind of correcting it, kind of as a note for when I paint again, what needs to change and where. It was mostly fine, so I end up, outlining a lot, but as I planned to paint over the whole thing, it didn't matter so much. This is kind of a continuation of the start of a series. I had done one other painting with a figure doing a somersault, a flip in the air, and I like the look of it and the idea of it, so I thought I would do several of these, but this is the first one I'm kind of doing. So I found it interesting, where the person was in an interesting shape as he was doing this flip or twist. I don't even know what it was that he was doing, but it looked cool. So, in fact, taking the painting after it was done, if you flip it around in different directions, you can make the figure look like it's doing different things. One angle kind of looks like he's ice skating, if you set it where his legs are facing down. So here, I'm a little overdrawing it. I don't really need all this, but it was just something to do next. And now I'm going to get back to the painting. I haven't painted in a couple of weeks, so this is kind of returning to the canvas and paints again. So it's good to have a simple painting, without a lot of detail, or any detail really, other than the shapes and, the positioning of things. It's good to have something simple to paint just to, get back into the swing of things. All told, the painting really was just, I want to say maybe a 10-minute, 12-minute total process, because as far as the details go, there isn't any, and it's just a matter of getting things, roughly the right angles and shapes, and then giving it an interesting finish. And here I'm adding a little highlight to the skin, just to indicate where the sunlight's hitting. I'm not looking for realism. It's really just, it is what it is. I was happy with the way that first stroke on the face was put on, and it just kind of looks like the side of a face. You can kind of tell without it being at all accurate to the actual photo, and no details. I'm convinced that doing these smaller paintings really helps me in my normal larger paintings. I normally do larger paintings. I find them easier to do because I like to work fast and loose with a big brush. But these smaller ones, I tend to tighten up a bit more because the brushes are smaller usually, and they just don't require a lot of movement of the arm. It's tighter, brush strokes involved. I have switched to my little 1/2-inch brush by this point, and I'm just kind of, adding some detail, all the detail this is going to get, and mentally I'm making notes where, like the feet aren't quite at the right angles and they're a little thick. So I'm making notes on, when I go back to the background, as I'm doing here, where to chisel out those refinements along the edges. And I'm using, it's not quite white, it has a little blue in it, but it's basically white compared to everything else, as just a way to really give a contrast to the darker color of the figure. And as I'm laying in these wider colors, I realize if I leave it with the dynamic lines, directional lines in the background, it kind of looks like either clouds or just action lines like you might see in a comic. So I've purposely, as I go, after outlining a lot of these parts of the body, I'm leaving streaks of blue in between the white, just as kinetic points of interest in the painting, just to have something for the eye to I don't know, enjoy puzzling. You know, you're kind of thinking, are those clouds? Is this an explosion going on back there? What's going on? And your eye kind of enjoys that process, I think, when you're looking at a finished painting. As opposed to if it were a blank blue sky, for instance, or blank white canvas, it leaves nothing for the eye to do. All that's left is the foreground figure. Whereas if you have an interesting background, your viewer can, you know, puzzle out and, you know, enjoy figuring out the background as well as the foreground, I think. And it depends on the painting. Some foreground elements require, you know, a less busy background. Like if you're really going for detail in the foreground image, you probably don't want a busy background to distract from that sort of thing. But in this case, I kind of knew what I wanted from the beginning, and I got exactly what I was looking for. Very loose, fun, kinetic painting. So I'll be doing more of these in the future, especially doing these small ones. They're fun to do and they're quick. I can find all kind of different, you know, shapes and configurations of the figure to experiment with and then do larger paintings maybe later. Anyway, thanks for listening. Hope this was enjoyable. And check out my other videos and click like at the bottom and subscribe. Thanks.